So I just want to go back in time though for a second. So hopefully many of you know the Jetsons first came out in the 60s. Certainly kind of had a few repeats throughout the decades because I saw it. But if we take a kind of a view back there on what we thought about the future of work 60 years ago, what we thought life would be like in fact. So back then they predicted 100 years from now, what would we have? The first thing we had video phones, right? Yep, future would be pretty cool. We've nailed that. Everyone is on their phones and doing Zoom and Skypes every day at work and in their personal life. We would have talking alarm clocks. Unfortunately, yes, we've got talking alarm clocks. Smartwatches, that may have been a pretty futuristic one, but actually, yep, we've even got smartwatches. Flat screen TVs, nailed that one. Robot vacuum cleaners, we've even managed to get the Roombas and things out. And then the last one, which I haven't seen but apparently does exist, is dog walking treadmills. So we've absolutely hit, kind of from a personal perspective, what we predicted would happen. But what about work? So for those of you who do know this, George Jetson, one of the main characters in the show, he only worked 9 hours a week. Who here works 9 hours a week? Okay, so we haven't quite got there yet. What do we know about what has changed at work? So what we do know is that we're working a lot more and we're going to work longer. We're living longer, we're working longer, everything is extending out. And so that's really interesting. The second thing is we know that the skills that we're using at work are changing. They're changing far more often. We're having to reskill and upskill. Technology is driving that. What we thought we knew is no longer needed, and we need to continue to stay up with the rate of change. And people are changing jobs more often. Now that's not just changing organizations more often, but changing jobs, changing roles, could be within the organization, could have multiple jobs at once. And that's also increasing at a rate. So if you look at tech companies, it's actually 2 years, not 4.5 years. And so what are we doing about that? People are working longer, they're changing skills more often, and they're changing jobs even more. So how does an organization or an enterprise deal with that? If we think about the personal life again, we've kind of nailed that. If we think about what the Jetsons talked about, and we can find everything in seconds. You all know this is an on-demand economy. Whatever you're looking for, a date, a meal, a car, something else, even dog walking, the Uber of dog walking. The only way that we can do that is because of the data that's available to us to be able to match those services. So what I need as a consumer and what the products and services available to me are available in real time now. So I can get all of these things. But if we then flip back to work, how the way that we find work and that people find us, it hasn't really changed. Yes, we've evolved from paper and classifieds to online, but we're still applying for jobs. The jobs are just online. And we're still treated in very much the same way. So what's going on? We know, all of you in the room, that your organizations are now made up of a blend of workers that aren't finding jobs the way we've always found jobs. You're also not finding, as an organization, us, the workers, in the way that you've always found us. That's changed and that's continuing. There's blends of workers cutting across permanent, contract, freelance, gig, statement of work, whatever you want to call it, put a brand on it, and it's now existing. That also includes things that aren't people. So we're augmenting our workforce with AI, robotics, and we need to kind of think about how do we get work done. Obviously, a lot of that's being fueled by changes in technology and the ability to be able to communicate with people across the world wherever they are, whenever we need them. And hiring managers in every organization across the world have skill shortages. Because the skills are changing, we just cannot find what we need. There's not enough to go around. We can't share it. People aren't learning fast enough. We need better visibility on what we do have. And the work, as we all know, has changed. So we aren't just hiring people into roles. We're looking at projects. We're looking at shorter engagements. We're looking at using the skills when we need them because they're not there forever and there's not enough of them to kind of sit there on the bench. So all of that combined leads to what we think total talent means. And so it means a couple of things to us. It means the whole talent pool. Total, hopefully you got that from the title. It's everything, including non-humans. So it needs to be, what is everything available to us to get a piece of work done? And it's not just about acquisition. So I'm sure most of you don't just hire people for the fun of it or look for people for the fun of it. The only reason you're doing that is because you need to get something done. You need to get work done. Your organization is trying to achieve its mission, and there's a number of things that need to be done on a daily, monthly, quarterly, annually basis to hit that. So it's around how do we get a total view of that, and it's not just acquisitions, but then the management of what's available to us. And lastly, and importantly for us, it's around visibility of the skills of that workforce. The skills of the workforce, the experiences of the workforce, the aspirations of the workforce, so that we can start to break down all of the work we're trying to get done in a better way. Because we might not get that from one person, we might need a team of people, we may only need it for a few hours, a day, a week, a month. Total Talent to us incorporates all of that. And so I'm just interested here because we've got a number of organisations in the room. You know, we've got the likes of PwC, Unilever and BAE Systems, who you'll hear from. We've got WPP, Nestle. Who has a total view of the skills? Let's just say on your permanent workforce. Does anybody have a view of what skills are across the organisation today?
We do.
Thanks, Jack from Adepto. So, who thinks that this is something that they would need to get a view on to be able to meet the needs of their business, but also the changing nature of work? Everyone, right. And who's working on that in some way, shape or form? Most of you, okay. So we've all kind of identified what it is. So in the white paper, I'm not going to bore you to death, you can read bedtime reading for you tonight. What we think you can do is a couple of things across the organisation. So one is really around, you've heard this before, it's HR is being strategic and not operational. So I think this is more important today than it ever really has been. So when your chief executive says, we need to launch this new product, our competitors beating us on this, we need to divest a business unit, you know, whatever it is the business is trying to do, HR is really one of the people that has all of the information that can help say we can do that or we can't do that. We can do that because we have all of the digital skills. We can see where our gaps are across the world, across our permanent employees, our contractors and everything in between. We know that we have people who have these skills that want to become these, and we need lots more of those. So how do we support that learning journey? Or, sorry boss, but you're dreaming. What you're trying to do, we have no capability in. So how are we going to go and hire, acquire, whatever we may need to do to meet that strategic goal? So that's the first thing. The second thing is breaking down the barriers. So we see it in organisations we work with, and you all see it. Because of the way that we've developed our workforce practices, procurement owns contractors, HR owns employees, and sometimes they're not friends. Often they're at kind of odds with each other. And so if we're trying to get that single view of the workforce, we really need to think about what is the optimal organisation structure. If we were going to start this all again today, we wouldn't be setting those functions up. We wouldn't say, oh, you own everyone that doesn't work for us kind of forever, and you own everyone who does. And you know, we just go, actually, somebody owns our workforce and the skills available to us. We obviously need to consider our technology. So you will have probably heard me or Ollie or Jack talk about this before. You know, we've got vendor management systems for the same reason, because we hired people through suppliers. We've got applicant tracking systems because we hired people permanently. We've got our human capital system that has people just when they're with us, but when they leave, they're gone. We've got these great systems, and they're not going anywhere, let's be clear. We're still implementing them. We need something that gives us a better view across those. And we need to engage with that entire workforce. So, you know, I'm sure people will be mentioning IR35 today and those elements, but if we think about the skills that we need don't want to work for us permanently, and we can't have them here because there's not enough of them, we need to think about how do we communicate with everybody, how do we engage with everybody, how do we think about their progression, their learning, their skills, because if, you know, all of the cyber analysts know that they can get a great rate on the market, they're going to go and work wherever. how are we going to help them come back here and be the great place to work when we need them? Because we don't have a choice. Or think about their development and their learning and their skills. Because we can't just focus on the employees who we have, because it actually may be the ones we don't have that we need. And then we need to look at what we call our hidden talent. So the other part of that is, a lot of you probably know how many people are in the organisation. So what's our total headcount? We could probably see the role titles of all of those people, and we could look at the skills that those people have based on the job they're doing in our business. Oh, did that just get a lot louder? I could start beatboxing now.
That's my job.
So if you think about that, you think, great, we have a view, but what about what all these people did before they were in that job at our organisation? Or on the weekends? Or at night? There's all of these skills that people have that we have no idea about. And there's no way to even uncover that in most organisations. And so why now? I mean, we've talked a bit about how things are changing, but this whole on-demand thing is continuing. Uber launched Uber Helicopter in Melbourne this week. I don't know if anybody saw that, but everything is just continuing at pace to this type of economy. Our workers want it, our customers want it, everyone needs to be more agile, and so this is not going anywhere. There's a need for competitiveness, whether it's Brexit in this market, whether it's access to technology. Globally, there is a bigger scale, and it's harder for organisations to stay profitable. It's harder for business to stay relevant, and so the only way to be able to do that is the agility of your organisation. And to be agile, you need to have a view of the skills and not just the people. The skills gap's getting worse. I'm not going to go on about that too much today. There is a change to how work is being done. I'm not working 9 hours a week, probably 9 hours twice a day maybe, but it's increasing. So we've got people working from home, part-time, flexible arrangements. And so managing that type of workforce with our existing landscape is also a bit difficult, because they're not on this system. We don't even know who they are. They're coming in and out of the organisation. What is our workforce? Skills are becoming quantifiable is the other thing. So we've talked a bit about skill identification, but how do we know somebody can do what they've said they do? We can go on LinkedIn and endorse somebody. These days, anyone can kind of say, I'm great at this, but how do we know that? How do we think about paying people according to the skills they've got, not the experiences, not their rank or hierarchy in the organisation? But if some skills are in more demand, it's just economies, supply and demand. People with the skills we need will be paid higher. How do we start to restructure work that way? A move to holacracy, which is a word that has been around for a little while, but we're seeing that. Organisations becoming flatter, being more of distributed networks, being self-organising, whether you call it agile or something else. That's happening across most major organisations. And then the rise of that transportability. We call it GDPR. Candidates will call it convenience. It's around, this is my information. I don't want to put it everywhere. I own it. I'm going to give it to you. Don't make me do it again. And as I'm moving through these different jobs and organisations, I just want to have one version of myself and allow you to see that. So these are all the drivers why we think that total talent is really important, and it's something that we know lots of businesses are working on, and we're really excited to have a few stories shared today and the journey to that, because nobody's nailed it. Raquel, Beth may tell me I'm wrong, but it's a journey, and we're kind of all on that together to try and figure it out. So thank you for coming. I hope you find some insights from the white paper and the conversations today, and I look forward to enjoying a meal and talking a bit more about this. Thank you.